Welcome to another episode of OPA-TV. I'm Brendan Fitzpatrick, and on today's show, we'll have an episode entitled Flying Oregon, a new series I hope to extend, in which we'll travel to lots of different destinations around the Northwest that you can reach by general aviation. Today, we'll be heading over to Boise in a 1979 Grumman Tiger that's owned and operated by the Tabuma Flyers, which is a not-for-profit flying club on Pearson Field in Vancouver, Washington. The Tiger is a great platform for what we're doing today. We're going from paved airport to paved airport, and with a fixed pitch propeller and fixed gear, so you never have to worry about leaving the gear up, you can get well over 130 knots out of a 180 horsepower engine that'll only drink about 10 gallons or so of fuel at cruise at altitude. 4 seats, and the club has recently restored it and painted it with a leather interior and an avionics package that includes an IFR GPS. So today we're going to Boise, Idaho, and a lot of people have made videos about rural Idaho, backcountry flying and so forth. Today we'll be going to urban Idaho. And like western Washington, which we're flying over here, the concentration of population in Idaho is in Boise. Where here in western Washington you see a lot of green, we'll be traveling almost due east and a little to the south and to end up in Boise, which also is in another time zone. So you get the feeling of being a real airline pilot when you have to land and set your watch ahead. So here's our Tiger on the ramp in Boise. And I chose to stay at Jackson Jet Center, which is one of the big corporate FBOs on the field. And I have to admit, they did a very good job for me. They even offered to drive me to the hotel if the shuttle that runs to a lot of the Boise hotels wasn't able to pick me up. Boise is unique in that it's both the center of government and the center of commerce in the state. It's the city capital and the state capital as well, so that you have a unique mix that you don't have in Oregon, for instance, where Salem and Portland are separated, or Olympia and Seattle. The downtown is very vibrant, with lots of cultural items, museums, shops, great restaurants, all within walking distance of each other. Here you can see the Boise Art Museum featuring the American cockroach. Everything is within a short walking distance, and with just a short afternoon you can get to see a lot of what's going on downtown, or really dig in for a longer stay and really get the feel for the city's restaurants and cultural attractions. If you've read the article about my trip to Boise, you'll know I'm also a big fan of microbrewed beer. And Table Rock in downtown Boise is a good source for that. But in addition to the urban setting, Idaho is still a very rural state, and fly fishing and fishing in general can be done both right in the city with rivers that run right through downtown, or you can launch any excursion to many of the remote parts of the state with fantastic fishing. Now, I wish I could tell you I have a great appreciation for fishing or tell you what kind of great fish are there. Fortunately, there's only so many things you can be involved with, and for me, fishing's not one of them. But Boise also is the home to Boise State. And since I travel in September, and you're thinking home football game TFR, give yourself a pat on the back. There was a home football game when I was there, so there was the TFR over the stadium. Luckily, that's to the north of the airport, and I came into the south. Boise State did win on the blue AstroTurf I heard referred to as Astro Smurf, and the visiting team actually stayed in the same Holiday Inn I did out by the airport. So here we are after a short trip on the way home, and if you notice in the distance, I have to hold to let 737 cross the runway. So never let anyone tell you that it's the airliners that wait for GA. Occasionally GA waits for the airliners. But truth be told, there was a Southwest 737 behind me who's also waiting for me to depart. Now, the Tiger has a cast ring nose wheel, so when I made that turn 210 right, my nose wheel was pointed to the left, and so I had to get it straightened out a little bit as we added power. And Boise's runways are big, wide, long. You'll have no problems landing anything there, and in fact you'll use barely a small fraction of it as you take off and head for home. So we're heading now to the east, so we'll need to do a downwind departure, make a 180-degree turn essentially to start heading west to come back home. Now, in addition to there being numerous FBOs right on the Boise airport in which you can get fuel and a variety of different prices, there's also a lot of small cities right outside Boise with airports, or even those like we see here in eastern Oregon that have good choices for fuel too. I just rather on even a trip of a few hours, it's nice to land at your destination and get out and be done, as opposed to having to land, fuel up, get back in the plane for a 10 or 15-minute flight to get over to Boise where the hotel shuttles are and everything I wanted to do was. But there are a number of small little airports with even some museums on that area right outside of Boise as well. One of the unique things you see now, and it's on the charts, in eastern Oregon and Washington, are these windmills generating electricity. And they're all over the place. There's quite a lot of farms out there. So while they're distinctive enough that you can find them, you never are 100% sure you're actually over the ones you think are on the chart. So any low-flying pilots might have a problem, but at 10,000 feet or so that I traveled over, we shouldn't. So here we are back in the Portland area, and that bridge you see center screen now has got an interesting future ahead of it, potentially billions of dollars by 2015 to put in a new bridge and take out that drawbridge that's actually on an interstate. Fort Vancouver there in the foreground, and then the airport will be coming up. So one of the unique things about the Pearson field we'll see here on downwind is that it looks like you're very close to the ground, that this would be too close to the ground for any sort of properly spaced downwind. But you'll see that we're essentially on a cliff, and as we make the turn from downwind to base, we'll drop off that cliff and be at a more appropriate height for downwind and base. So there we are, and you can see now we're at a good distance above those lower buildings, which are down at sea level right along the Columbia River we see in the distance. Pearson is also unique in that as of 2008 and 2009, you have to talk to the Portland Tower to come in and out, where they'll give you warnings about jets and wake turbulence. So make sure you see that. It's posted on the sectional. Now there is, unfortunately, no matter what we do, a fair amount of development right here on Final. And a lot of it that we had already flown over was industrial, so on the weekends it's closed. But we're coming right over here as a brand new shopping center that probably went up within the last 2 years. So on a busy Saturday, you're coming in at just a few hundred feet over all those people and all those shops. I guess our battle's never done. We've constantly got to work for that. So Pearson is a short runway and fairly narrow, but still not a problem for the Tiger with the displaced threshold. We'll see on rollout, after I leave you, that it's also the home of the Pearson Air Museum, which is a great little museum to come check out for World War II planes if you're ever in the area. So you always know it's a pretty good landing if you can make the first turn off. Otherwise, you're going to the end of the runway. What we'll see as we make the turn here, we'll see the museum I mentioned. So thanks very much for joining me on this trip. As I said in the beginning, I'm willing to take trips with anyone, or if you've got great destinations where you think I should visit, let me know. I'm Brendan Fitzpatrick, and thanks for flying Oregon with me.